Lalit Kala Kendra did an experiment last year. We were just toying with the idea of how to bring the area of aesthetics closer to the students of dance criticism. And what we did is we chose three philosophers. We have a very renowned professor at our campus, Professor Bhilke, who chose three philosophers, and he gave lectures in the morning, and in the afternoon the students would do improvisations as an outcome of the theories in the morning. So it was the reverse. We tried to practice the theory and try to see what really came out of this 3-day research project. Our next speaker is Leela Venkatraman, with an experience of around 35 years in dance writing, first with National Herald, then with the Patriot, and concluding with the Hindu. She's very actively involved with the Hindu even today, and also with several editions of North India. Her Friday critiquing has earned many readers, and I'm sure many of us have access to that through the internet, and her reviews through the internet of regarding the Hindu. She writes regularly for the Shruti, for Nartanam, has written for several foreign journals, which is the TDR, Probe. She's a recipient of Sangeet Natak Akademi Award, and we are aware of her books. One of them, which we use regularly for assignments, Traditions in Transition. The others are Step by Step of Bharatanatyam, a phenomenon called Birju Maharaj, and a special book on Bharatanatyam written for classical dance, written for children, published by Children's Book Trust. And right now in process is Classical Dance After Renaissance in India. So I welcome Leela ji with a special topic titled Dance Terminologies in Dance Criticism. Leela ji.
Fellow critics and the distinguished audience, today I'm going to talk about something which is perhaps slightly away from what others are talking about. And that is about the kind of terminology that has come into use in dance criticism. Having had an experience for the last 35 years, I find it more and more difficult as the years go by to reconcile myself to some of this kind of almost jargonizing that has come into play. And when you're talking of the macro and the micro, one wonders how you're going to find a special language to explain the macro and the micro separately. Particularly for a writer in English on Indian dance styles, there is a great deal of difficulty. Because you're talking about art forms which had their birth way back in the past in history, but which in revisited manifestations are existing even today. All of us have got used to these words like classical, modern, traditional, innovative, experimental, authentic. And these are words which are used not merely by dance practitioners also, but of course by the writers. We are constantly trying in our writings to chronologically slot something into a particular category. This kind of categorizing is all right when you're dealing with an unbroken history from the past to the present. But our dance histories are not unbroken. They have always been determined by socio-political conditions. They are checkered, they are revisited, they are reconstructed, they are redesigned for new audiences, and they exist in absolutely new contemporary manifestations at a particular point of time. And yet we call all of them traditional. And the irony is, the traditional families which used to look after them, the Devadasis and the Tavaifs, were all sent home by society because we thought they were not fit enough to be able to nourish these dance forms and to live in society. Now, we've had a lot of people from a non-traditional background who have come in and created these newly structured dance forms. From Madam Menaka in Kathak to Rukmini Devi in Bharatanatyam to a lot of people in other art forms like Kathakali and so on, like Shanta Rao who did work even for a form like Mohiniyattam. All of these people came from a background that was very different. They came with a sensibility, with sensibilities that were formed by a lifestyle which was very different from what it used to be amongst the professional dancers who used to nourish these art forms. Now, when they came into these dance forms, they naturally brought with them their own sensibilities. And what we saw on the stage was something very different. The craft may have been the same. It was taught by the same gurus who used to teach the Devadasis and the traditional entertainers earlier. But the way in which we used this craft and the way in which we looked at this craft and our entire approach to the dance forms had completely changed. And yet, we call them traditional. What exactly do we mean by tradition? I suppose when a certain value structure, a certain discipline has been handed down from generation to generation over several decades, we call it a tradition. But in our country today, in all these restructured forms, where does tradition come in? We always talk about the identity of a dance form. This is another word we use constantly. I remember when Nrityagram started performing Odissi, you had these dancers with extremely well-toned bodies, and you know their stretches were completely full, their leaps into the air were much higher, and they came with an exuberant physicality which really was not part of what the normal Odissi dancer did. And there were lots of Odissi practitioners. This cannot be called Odissi. This is not traditional. This is different. Why was it not traditional? I remember when, this is an example which I have given very often, when a person like Ramli Ibrahim came with his troupe and he changed the costume and his dancers performed without the odni, there was a hue and cry. And people in Orissa were extremely unhappy about what he had done. I received a lot of calls from Orissa, and people, you being a critic, have to say that something non-traditional has been done. I said, what do you mean by tradition? And they always quoted their old temples where you have these beautiful dance figurines, and they talked of Konarak. I said, what is the dancer in Konarak wearing? She is wearing literally nothing. What you are talking of is something entirely different. You are talking of certain conventions which have been established for a certain period by certain gurus. These conventions have been largely followed by all the disciples. Now, when somebody goes against the convention, there is a hue and cry, and you say, tradition has been destroyed. Where is tradition, convention? Every time you find in the writing, there is always this problem. Where does They say he is breaking the identity of the dance form. Where does the identity of Odissi lie? In a beautifully held chauka, in a perfect tribhangi, and the dance in between these two main poses? Identity is a word which is very, very difficult to describe. It's something which one feels. It's the poetry, it's a particular aroma in the music. It's a lot of things which go to form an identity. And when you talk about the identity of a dance form, you are talking about a totality, but it's very difficult to explain in words. So when a critic is writing about an identity of a dance form, can he link it only to a chauka and a tribhangi which are not properly held? I don't know. I was thinking of this Mahari dance, which has been completely recreated by one of the gurus, Pankaj Charan Das. Now, Pankaj Charan, as a child, happened to be reared in the house of a Mahari, along with his mother. But the Maharis had long ceased in Orissa when he came out with the Mahari dance. This was something which was a created thing out of his imagination. There was no such thing as a Mahari dance. And yet today we say, this is the Mahari dance, something that the Mahari did in the temples, and there are special awards being given for people who excel in Mahari dance. So we say he's gone back to tradition. That is why I'm saying, when you revisit tradition, when you make reconstructions, it's always very difficult to know where things have changed. Just the other day, the great scholar Mukund Lat was talking about chapters in one of the finest Hindi books that he has come out with recently, a series of essays on different aspects of music and dance aesthetics. And there he says, in a sampradaya, they never mention the word new. And yet it was always new. It was never what was done. It was always something different. Even when an alapana is being done, it's not going to be the same thing. The same person doing it a second time is going to be different. But he never says, I'm doing it new. He says, this is part of the sampradaya which is going from the past to the present. As you go through this corridor of time, these changes automatically come. You take in so many things, you leave out many things. So, when we take the riches from the past, we get inspired by them. We redesign them for a modern audience. The people who are doing it are different. The people who are watching it is a cosmopolitan audience. And in every way, your approach to the dance form has changed. We talk aesthetics. When you look at the non-conjugal sexuality of the Devadasi, which was considered so essential in her portrayal of Shringar, and you think of today, when you think of the body as sacred, and you are talking spirituality, which has to be accentuated, where does tradition come in? So these things keep changing with time. When change is accepted, you have to form a terminology for it. And I find that as a dance critic, sometimes it becomes very difficult to know where you can find these words. Swapna Sundari rediscovered the dance form of the Andhra Devadasis. She first went to Nataraj Ramakrishna, who said he would teach her a few items. She said, no, I don't want the items. I want the alphabet of the style, the codified letters, so that I can form my own dance. He obviously had not learnt it in that way, and his ideas were different because he had made it part of Andhra Natyam. Then Swapna Sundari, along with Arudra, the great poet, started going individual Devadasis. Some of them, the Kalavantalu, who still existed. but who after the trauma probably had not danced in public for years and years and years. Whatever they could recapture, whatever memory still retained after all the years they have been through, they were able to teach her. But there was a lot that was missing. What was missing, she didn't know what to do. She said, shall I go to the Natya Shastra? Then Arudra told her, no, you cannot go to the Natya Shastra. You have to go to a text which deals with the Devadasi form. Only then you will be able to learn something. And she went to these texts, and she says she found something which seemed to be completely agreeing with what Devadasis had said. Nritta Ratnavali, Jayappa Senapati's. That was one of the great books that she consulted. And she felt that she was able to fill the blanks, and her dance became more complete. Now when you ask her, is this the dance of the old Kalavantalu, the solo form and the tradition which was practiced amongst the Telugu-speaking people for so many years? She says, very frankly, this is very responsible reconstruction. That's how she describes it. She says, I can't say anything else. It is responsible reconstruction. Because even when she went to the texts, she had to interpret what those texts said. And in the course of interpreting it, she put in her own creativity. So when she put in her own creativity, obviously, a lot of it was Swapnasundari's own creativity, along with what she had learned from the ancients. When she put the two together, she said it is Vilasini Nrityam. So she said, all that I can say is, I have been inspired by the old dance of the Devadasis. I have tried to recreate it to the extent possible. But when the Devadasis themselves did not remember every bit of it, for me to say that it is 10% the old dance would be very difficult. So I say it is responsible reconstruction. There are so many reconstructions today. There are so many constructions today. What do you say about Gaudiya Nritya? This is supposed to be the classical dance of Bengal. And nothing in terms of an actual physical tradition has existed. Though there are lots of texts which are quoted. If you go back to the old texts in Bengal, and if you go back to history, there are lots of references which give you an idea that yes, something that was certainly class dance did exist in those courts. But was it really the dance that has been created today? It's been called the classical style of Bengal. Again, I have a lot of difficulties with it. I had tremendous problems in the beginning, before I understood what she was trying to do, when Chandralekha started doing her work. Why, you would ask? Now, here was a person who openly said that tradition has to be thought of as fluid, open-ended, and foregrounding, and full of ruptures, which takes all these disjunctions, which you can question all the time, which breaks new ground. This is something which has to be accepted. She took the Bharatanatyam technique, but she treated the backbone as a metaphor for expressing resistance. We talk of the Alaripu as the beginning of the Marga, to show how technique really works. When all movement starts out from a center, fans out, and comes back to the center. That whole idea is so beautifully expressed in the Alaripu, with both the hands doing the same thing on two sides, and the person in the Aramandi, or the absolute straight position, with weight balanced evenly on both sides of the body. She took the same thing, but in one of the compositions or productions, she treated this to show the efflorescence of a person's personality. She says, when the full efflorescence comes into existence, it becomes the Alaripu. Similarly, when she thought of prana, a lot of her themes took from tradition. The ideas were all from tradition. The body language to start with was a traditional form. But what she presented was completely different. What do you call it? Where is the language to describe it? Some people said contemporary Bharatanatyam. All Bharatanatyam is contemporary. You are doing it today, so it is all our art forms, all our classical forms are contemporary. Contemporary Bharatanatyam doesn't seem to answer it at all. And we find that we get so many different versions. Conservative in tradition, or traditional in form and content. Very conservative in form, modern in content. Modern in form, traditional in content. Modern in form and content. You get so many different versions, manifestations being played out all the time. And I think it is very essential for a critic to not only find a terminology for this, but to be able to express the present very vividly without trying to slot it and give a full stop and say it fits into this groove. Because we don't know whether it really fits in there. Tomorrow it think very different. So I think that fluidity, dance is a fluid art. It's not something which remains the same. Before our great technology and recording apparatus, where we could imprison word and image and go back to look at it again and again, dance and music existed only at the point when they actually came into existence. Otherwise, it was never there. Not like architecture, not like sculpture, not like drawing, not like literature, which you can go back to again and again, you can refer to it. But that's not so in movement. That was not there with the voice. It produced it at that point of time, and then it disappeared. So it was only the memory of it that remained. And then we always talk about tradition, and we say that then it was not like this, now it is different. What is the then? How far back does the then go? Memory go? 50 years? 60 years? I don't think memory can go beyond that. And yet we say, we like to think of tradition as something which comes from thousands of years back in our history. Which is why I think this whole mindset has to be changed. We have to make people understand that we've got a treasure trove of a vocabulary of movement, of aesthetic expressions, which have come down over the ages from generation to generation. They have stopped at times, they have been revived. They depend upon the social and political conditions of a time. When they have been revived, when they have been reconstructed, all we can say is they draw their inspiration from the past, but what they are today is different. Very often when a Bharatanatyam dancer is doing a movement, I get the writing in a critic who writes, that's not the traditional way of doing the movement. What is the traditional way of doing the movement? Your guru may have taught you in a particular way. But guru-bound forms, prescribed forms, in spite of all the prescriptions, you cannot take an art form away from the artistic imagination of the creator and the practitioner. That is the person who is important at that point of time. And he or she is going to make a difference. Are we able to picture this difference, these minute, micro details in our criticism? If not, we are just dealing with commonplace terms which don't mean anything. You know, it was Rukmini Devi who once said that great messengers of art rarely do anything new. They just feel the reality. They reveal it almost unconsciously. They reveal it almost unconsciously. And it is that revealing that you have to be able to catch in dance writing. Otherwise, dance writing is of no use whatsoever. I was looking at one of the old articles by Madam Menaka in Sight and Sound, which the great Raghavan used to edit once upon a time, scholar Raghavan. And here she talks about Kathak, 1933, even before I was born. And it says, senseless posturing and posing, making dance an exotic presentation only for appreciation and delectation of the West. Virtuosity has destroyed the inner core of identity of Kathak. Mind you, she said this in 1933, and those words are true even today. I think this is what, 1933 says, senseless posturing and posing, making of dance an exotic presentation only for appreciation and delectation of the West. Virtuosity has destroyed the inner core of identity. I think that stands true even today. And if a person is able to capture that, that is a dance writer. Because we always talk about something as being cut and dry, finished, full stop, it's all there, you just have to take it out and do it the same way. But dance is not like that. Who does the policing? And who decides? Vempatichinna Satyam, the great guru, was once talking to somebody, and he came out some very interesting details. He said, if there is a ditch of water in your garden, for years together it starts smelling, does it mean that you have to keep the ditch as it is, and that you cannot ever change the water and do something about it? He says, we make the sampradaya. There was so much of Vachika Abhinaya in Kuchipudi. I took it out. Instead, I bought in Angika Abhinaya. I am the one who made all these jatis, which now have come into as something which is part of tradition. I am the one who did this great item for Yamini Krishnamurti. And today everybody does it, and says, it's become part of this great, who is this Kuchipudi, Satyabhama. Satyabhama's dance. They present it as part of that, and they say, this is part of tradition. This is the tradition. I created all that, and now it has come into the tradition. So we are the people who decide the sampradaya, who decide the tradition. We are the people who do the policing. We are the people who go against it also. And for the critics, it's very essential to find a language to be able to explain these changes correctly. Thank you.
Agree analyzing the fluidity of the medium, and therefore fluidity in the criticism too. There is in perception and the politics of terminologies. We move on to our next speaker, Manjana. With an academic qualification of MA in Sanskrit, music, a B.Ed from Lucknow University, a Sangeet Prabhakar in vocal, tabla, sitar and Kathak from Prayag Sangeet Samiti, and further training in sitar under Sri Arvind Parikh in the lineage of Ustad Vilayat Khan. An experienced writer who was commissioned to write a book on Ustad Bade Ghulam Ali Khan, authored the chapter of Kathak for the book Indian Dances, The Ultimate Metaphor, edited by Shanta Sarbajit Singh. Prolifically contributed articles in English and Hindi on music, both Hindustani and Carnatic, dance, art and culture in various music journals and periodicals such as Shruti, India Today, Dharma Yug, Saptahik Hindustan, Dinman, Femina, Ravivar, Chayanat, Kalavarth, India Perspective, Book Review, Swagat, Namaskar, etc. Has also contributed and contributes to Nartaki and worldmusiccentral.org on the internet. Written regular columns in national dailies like Navbharat Times, Jansatta, Deccan Chronicle, Milap, and Varta, etc. Also, columns on music and dance for The Statesman, The Hindu, and Dainik Bhaskar. Has reviewed books on music and dance for India Today, the Hindi version, presented lecture demonstrations on classical music and dance institutions in India and abroad, presented a series of illustrated talks on Begum Akhtar on Vivid Bharati's Sangeet Sarita, interviewed many musicians and dancers for Sur Sadhana, a series which was telecast on Doordarshan. She herself is an auditioned artist of All India Radio, broadcasting programs such as talks, interviews, and programs on Sanskrit and travelogues as well. She has written sleeve notes for Sabaras Records of UK and DVDs of Doordarshan's archival recordings and All India Radio. She has been a member of the jury for Kalidas Samman, Khajuraho Dance Festival and Sanskriti Samman, etc. The relevance of content in criticism, Manjari ji, I invite you.
मित्रों, सबसे पहले मैं इस संस्थान को और परिमल जी को इतने संगठित सुचिंतित आयोजन के लिए हृदय से बधाई देना चाहती हूँ। ये देख कर के बहुत अच्छा लगा कि यहाँ भाषा मात्र माध्यम है उस कंटेंट के लिए जो आप अभिव्यक्त करना चाहते हैं। आपको ये सुविधा है, आप अंग्रेज़ी में बोलें, मराठी में बोलें, हिंदी में बोलें, किसी भी भाषा में बोलें। भाषा एक माध्यम है और यही हमारी कलाओं का भी सच है। ये क्रिटिसिज्म, जिसे हमारी समीक्षा कहते हैं, हाल की बात है। हमारे यहाँ पुरानी परंपरा रही है, मंदिरों में अष्टयाम सेवा होती थी, जहाँ पे दिन के हर प्रहर के राग के हिसाब से आरती वंदन होता था। भोर सुबह के ललित जैसे रागों में भगवान को जगाने से लेकर के कलेवा, भोजन, विश्राम, शाम की आरती, रात्रि का शयन, अलग अलग प्रहर के राग, अलग अलग मौसम के राग, उसी तरह का श्रृंगार, उसी तरह का भोजन, यानी संस्कृति से जुड़ाव हमारी कलाओं का स्वभाव और चरित्र रहा है। कालांतर में मंदिर के बाद महाराजाओं के दरबार में जब आया नृत्य संगीत, तो विद्वत चर्चा का दौर चला। जो कलाकार परफॉर्म करते थे उसके बाद विद्वत चर्चा होती थी कि उसने कैसा गाया, कैसा बजाया, कैसा नाचा, अगर गाया तो राग का बर्ताव सही था कि नहीं, अगर नाचा तो अंग शुद्धि कैसी थी, व्याकरण का व्यवहार कैसा था। ये अखबारी समीक्षा का चलन अभी 19वीं शताब्दी की शुरुआत में आया है, यहाँ पे 20वीं शताब्दी की शुरुआत में। अंग्रेज़ी अखबारों की देखा देखी चलन तो आ गया, लेकिन प्रायः सभी भारतीय कलाओं का प्रच्छन्न गुण आध्यात्मिक है। उनका उद्देश्य मनोरंजन मात्र नहीं है, बल्कि रूपांतरण है। हमारी कलाएं, संगीत, नृत्य इत्यादि कलाकार और साधक का ही नहीं, प्रेक्षक का भी रूपांतरण कर जाती है। इन कलाओं में वास्तविक सत्व रसास्वादन हमारे अंदर के दैवी तत्व को दीप्त करता है, हमें अंदर से एनरिच करता है, हमें बेहतर इंसान बनाता है। संगीत, नृत्य जैसी कलाओं में सिद्धि के लिए जिस कोटि की साधना की ज़रूरत होती है, वो कलाकार को धीरे धीरे बदलना शुरू कर देती। मुझे याद आ रहा है, बड़े गुलाम अली खान ने एक बार कहा था कि अगर इस मुल्क में हर घर में एक एक बंदा भी संगीत सीख लेता तो मुल्क का बंटवारा नहीं होता, क्योंकि वह इन क्षुद्र मानसिकताओं से, ईर्ष्या से, कलह से, वैमनस्य से हमें दूर करती है, अच्छाई की ओर, मैत्री की ओर, स्पंदन की ओर हमें ले जाती है। और ये संगीत साधना जिसकी बात मैं कर रही हूँ, मात्र प्रैक्टिस नहीं है, जिसे कि अंग्रेज़ी में प्रैक्टिस के द्वारा कहा जाता है, एक निरपेक्ष लगातार अभ्यास, एक ही चीज़ को किए जाना, वो नहीं है। साधना वो है जो जिन क्षणों में आप अभ्यास करते हैं उन क्षणों में भी, और जो आप नहीं करते हैं तब भी वो सतत मनन चिंतन आपके अंदर अंदर चलता रहता है, मथता रहता है, आपको अंदर से बदलता रहता है। प्रेक्षक और श्रोता भी जब संगीत नृत्य देखने सुनने जाता है तो हम सॉरी, हम बहक गए अपनी कलाओं के साथ में। हम बात कर रहे थे कि समीक्षा कैसे आई भारत में। तो जब विदेश की समीक्षा की देखा देखी यहाँ पर आई, तो हम ये भूल जाते हैं कि वहाँ पे एक कसौटी है, एक मानदंड है जो पहले देखा जा रहा है, किया जा रहा है, बहुत पहले से लिखा गया है, अक्षरशः उसे परिभाषित किया गया, उसे स्वरलिपिबद्ध किया गया है। तो एक लिखित कसौटी है जिसके ऊपर उसे कसा जा सकता है। अगर स्वानलेख किया जा रहा है तो उसका संगीत सही था कि नहीं, उसकी अंकशुद्धि सही थी कि नहीं, वो उस कसौटी पे परख सकते हैं। लेकिन हमारे यहाँ कलाकार के अंदर के उस तत्व का अभिव्यक्ति है। कला में मात्र माध्यम है। जब हम नृत्य देखने जाते हैं तो हम किसी खास बैले को या किसी सिम्फनी को देखने नहीं जाते हैं। हम जाते हैं यामिनी कृष्णमूर्ति को देखने, सुचिता चापेकर को देखने, बिरजू महाराज को देखने। तो कला में व्याकरण है, अंग शुद्धि है, वो टेक्निकल एस्पेक्ट्स तो हैं ही हैं, पर असली बात ये है कि आप खुद कहाँ हैं। जब जो दर्शक या प्रेक्षक है वो कला के साथ आपको देख पाता है, तब जाकर के उसको तृप्ति मिलती है। मात्र तकनीकी कौशल एक चमत्कार भर पैदा कर सकता है, वो तृप्ति नहीं दे सकता है जो कि कला का सत्व है। मेरे प्रपत्र का शीर्षक है संगीत समीक्षा का अभिप्रेतार्थ। समीक्षा से मंतव्य क्या है, हम क्या देख करके लिखने जा रहे हैं। जैसा अभी लीला ने कहा कि उस बात को अभिव्यक्त कैसे करें, तो उस बात के लिए समालोचना और क्रिटिसिज्म, जब हम क्रिटिसिज्म का शब्द का इस्तेमाल करते हैं तो ये शब्द ही अपने आप में लगता है कुछ नकारात्मक सा, कि हम कुछ आलोचना ही करने जा रहे हैं। लेकिन हिंदी में उसके लिए शब्द है समालोचना, सम्यक आलोचना, समीक्षा, सम्यक ईक्षण, गुण दोष दोनों का विवेचन। और इस गुण को आत्मसात करने की बात बहुत लोग कह चुके हैं अभी, कि एक सहृदय रसिक होना चाहिए उसके लिए, कि आप स्वयं उसका आनंद ले सकें, तब तो वो आनंद शेयर कर सकते हैं। अभी लीला ने भी कहा, ये जो हमारी संगीत नृत्य कलाएं हैं वो चित्रकला, स्थापत्य कला की तरह से उपलब्ध नहीं हैं कि उनको आप देख करके फिर से उसकी समीक्षा कर सकें। ये क्षणभंगुर कलाएं हैं, बनने के साथ मिटती जाती हैं। तो जब समीक्षक एक समीक्षा लिखता है तो उस नृत्य को, उस संगीत को अपने मन में पुनर्जीवित करके उसके आस्वाद को, उसके रस सिंचन को महसूस करके फिर उसका गुण दोष विवेचन उसे करना होता है। और ये बहुत चैलेंजिंग काम है, बहुत चुनौती भरा काम है। इसके लिए कई चीज़ें आवश्यक होती हैं। पहली तो जाहिर है कि आपको उसका सही ज्ञान होना चाहिए। आप जब कला को खुद करेंगे तब जा कर के आपको ये पता चलेगा कि इसके पीछे कितनी मेहनत है। आप इस तरह से आलोचना नहीं लिखेंगे कि उखाड़ा और जड़ में मट्ठा डाल दिया कि वो फिर पनपने ही न पाए। बहुत संभावना होती है कलाकारों पे, मंच पे चढ़ने में ही बरसों युग बीत जाते हैं। कितनी साधना अपेक्षित होती है। तो एक जिसने खुद किया होता है उसमें सदैता होती है, सहृदयता होती है कि वो समझ सके किसके पीछे कितना समर्पण, कितने त्याग, कितने परिश्रम की आवश्यकता है। फिर जब हम समीक्षा करते हैं तो उसके अंदर देखा क्या जाए। भारतीय संगीत नृत्य के लिए, किसी भी कला को सराहने के लिए, हमारी जो भारतीय कलाएं हैं उसको सराहने के लिए वी नीड अ लिटिल बिट ऑफ इनिशिएशन। जैसे एक जाना पहचाना दोस्त आता हुआ लगे तो हमें अच्छा लगता है बजाय एक चित आदमी के, उसी तरह से जो राग गाया जा रहा है उससे थोड़ी सी हमारी वाकफियत हो, जो नाचा जा रहा है उससे थोड़ी सी वाकफियत हो तो हमें ज़्यादा आनंद आता है। आप अब उस सहजता महसूस करेंगे, उस आनंद लाभ में वो सहायक होगा। तो उसका थोड़ा बहुत ज्ञान आवश्यक है। तो जब समीक्षा हम करते हैं तो उस थोड़ा बहुत जानकारी भी अपने उसको देते चलें तो अच्छा रहता है। समीक्षक के लिए कला विशेष के शास्त्र ही नहीं, प्रयोग पक्ष का भी थोड़ा बहुत ज्ञान ये। फिर समीक्षा प्रस्तुत किए गए कार्यक्रम की फहरिस्त भर नहीं होती है। उसने क्या किया क्या किया क्या किया क्या किया ये बता दिया कि पहले अल्लाह रिपु नाचा, फिर पदम नाचा, फिर वर्णम नाचा, फिर ये ना, उससे काम नहीं बनता है। उसको गिराने की जगह उसकी सम्यक आलोचना होनी चाहिए, पूरी विवेचना कि कार्यक्रम का अभिप्रेत लक्ष्य क्या था और नर्तकी उस स्तर तक पहुंच पाई कि नहीं। समीक्षा किसी घटना का निर्लिप्त ब्यौरा भर नहीं है। समीक्षक चुनाव कर सकता है कि वो किस प्रत्यय को उभारे, लेकिन किन पक्षों को रेखांकित करे, गुण दोषों को किस तरह उभारे। अतः नृत्य समीक्षा में समीक्षक के दृष्टिकोण का और उसकी रससिद्धता का, उसकी सहृदयता का भी आवश्यक होता है। समीक्षक की अंतर्दृष्टि कितनी गहरी है उसकी समीक्षा बता देती है। हर नर्तकी एक शाश्वत नायिका का प्रतीक होती है। यही कारण है कि नृत्य की हर शैली में परिधान प्रायः ऐसा होता है जो नर्तकी का सामान्यीकरण कर देता है। हम वो कैसी लग रही है इसी में उलझ के न रह जाएं। मोटी है कि पतली है, काली है कि गोरी है, काले रंग का पहना है कि पीले रंग का पहना है, दुपट्टा पहना है कि नहीं पहना है, वो इमैटीरियल है। बात नर्तकी के नहीं, वो जो कला संप्रेषित कर रही है उसकी हो रही है। तो आप उसकी कला का आकलन पर कर पाएं, उस कला का रसास्वादन कर पाएं और उस आस्वाद को दर्शकों तक, प्रेक्षकों तक, और क्योंकि प्रेक्षक तो 10 एक सभागार में 500 होंगे, 1000 होंगे, लेकिन हमारा अखबार, हमारी समीक्षाएं लाखों लोगों तक पहुंचती है इंटरनेट के ज़रिए, इधर से उधर से। तो बहुत लोग पढ़ते हैं और उनकी ज्ञान वृद्धि होती है। हमारे यहाँ 2 तरह की प्रतिभा की कही गई है, कारयित्री प्रतिभा और भावयित्री प्रतिभा। कलाकार में कारयित्री प्रतिभा जितनी ज़रूरी है, आप सब समझ जाते हैं, करने से जो आती है प्रतिभा वो कारयित्री प्रतिभा है, और भावयित्री प्रतिभा उसकी समझ से पैदा होती है। उसको समझ के, उसको आत्मसात करके उसका भावन करा सके। तो समीक्षक में, कलाकार में कारयित्री प्रतिभा जितनी ज़रूरी है, समीक्षक में भावयित्री प्रतिभा का भी होना उतना ही ज़रूरी है। मूर्तिकला अगर स्थिरता में गतिमयता का आकलन करती है तो नृत्य गतिमयता में आंतरिक स्थिरता की है, और इसका सरोकार नर्तक कलाकार की आंतरिक पक्वता से होता है। कोई भी कला कलाकार के अंदर के तत्व को प्रकट करने की स्पृहा रखती है, और ये आपके आंतरिक तत्व के सत्व को संप्रेषित करने की जो क्षमता है, यही हमारी कलाओं का साध्य भी है और यही हमारी कलाओं की सिद्धि भी है। यह तभी संभव हो पाता है जब कलाकार ने खुद को जानने की कोशिश की हो, और बिना स्वयं को जाने स्वयं को अभिव्यक्त नहीं कर सकता। कोई भी कला कलाकार के अंतस्थ सत्व का दर्पण है। कला के सत्व को जानना और परखना भी समीक्षक का दायित्व है। एक सहृदय और जागरूक समीक्षक अपने पाठकों को भी शिक्षित और समृद्ध चलता है। सभागार में गिनती के श्रोता होते हैं और हम लोग बहुत लोगों तक पहुंचाते हैं, तो समीक्षा का और हमारे स्तंभों का अनुपेक्षणीय महत्व है। यहाँ बहुधा समीक्षा के नाम पर रिपोर्टिंग होती है, और बहुत सारे ऐसे भी लोग होते हैं हमारी भी, जो नेपथ्य में जाकर के खुद कलाकार से ही पूछाते हैं कि उसने क्या नाचा, क्या गाया, और अपनी तारीफ वो खुद ही बता दे कि उसके बारे में क्या लिखा जाए, और वो खुशी खुशी दे देते हैं लिखा लिखाया मैटर, जो कि अगले दिन आपको छपा हुआ मिल जाता है। हिंदी में चूंकि ऐसा पैसा इतना कम मिलता है, इसलिए भी समीक्षा के काम को संजीदगी से नहीं लिया जाता। यहाँ समीक्षा को व्यवसाय के तौर पर लेना कठिन है। कोई भी वही लिखेगा जिसके पास आमदनी का कोई और जरिया हो। तो नृत्य समीक्षा ही को दरकिनार, और अखबारों में भी अगर एक एडवर्टीजमेंट आ गया तो आपकी समीक्षा दरकिनार कर दी जाएगी। फिर भी हिंदी में अच्छी और स्तरीय समीक्षा की संभावना अंग्रेजी से बेहतर है, क्योंकि यहाँ उपलब्ध शब्दावली है। जिसकी बात अभी कह रही थी लीला, जैसे आपको मुहावरे के तौर पे हम बताते हैं, कथक को लीजिए, ताल नाचना। अब इसका अनुवाद क्या अंग्रेजी में करेंगे? कथक में ताल नाचा जाता है। आपको नाच में ताल के अलग अलग विभाग, अलग अलग मात्राएं दिखाई पड़ जाती हैं, और अगर वो ना हो तो उसकी आलोचना की जा सकती है। पैर से बोलों का कटना, बोल तो बहुत सारे कहे जा रहे हैं पर पैर में खाली ताते थे तत निकल रहा, चलेगा नहीं, चल बेना। तो संगीत को व्यावहारिक यानी प्रयोग पक्ष की, अर्थात जैसे स्वरों को हिलें, सुर लगाओ, सुराओ, आलाप, बहलावा, उपज, ये सब चीज़ें ऐसी हैं जो केवल इम्प्रोवाइजेशन शब्द मात्र से नहीं अभिव्यक्त होती हैं। इसी तरह समीक्षा लिखते समय इन सब शब्दों का जिनका हमने अभी इस्तेमाल किया, हिंदी में जो कि त्यों इस्तेमाल किए जा सकते हैं और बहुत अच्छी तरह से आपके अभिप्रेतार्थ को वो आगे बढ़ाएंगे। बहरहाल अंग्रेज़ी हो या हिंदी, सच बात यह है कि भाषा माध्यम मात्र है, जैसा कि मैंने अभी कहा। उस भाषा के द्वारा आप कहना क्या चाह रहे हैं, असली बात वही है। तो बात वही है कि आपका अभिप्रेतार्थ क्या है, समीक्षा का अभिप्रेतार्थ क्या है। संगीत नृत्य प्रदर्शन अच्छा था तो वो क्यों अच्छा था, भले ही आप सुंदरतम शब्दों में उसे अच्छा कहें या निकृष्टतम शब्दों में अगर बुरा कहें, पर जो प्रेक्षक पढ़ रहा है वो जानना चाहता है कि अच्छा था तो क्यों अच्छा था, बुरा था तो क्यों बुरा था। तो आप उसकी विवेचना कर सकें, समझ के, उसका आस्वाद करके, उसका रसास्वादन करके, उसको परख करके, उसको महसूस करके, और केवल नर्तकी के आवरण में लिपट के न रह जाएं, उसके पीछे उसकी कला का आकलन कर सकें। उदय शंकर नाचते थे तो उनके नाच में न कथक था, भरतनाट्यम, कथाकली था, लेकिन नृत्य था। बाला सरस्वती नाचती थीं तो ठीक है, भरतनाट्यम की वर्णमाला थी, सब कुछ था, लेकिन उसके पीछे एक कला थी। गुरु केलुचरण महापात्र नाचते थे तो आप उस समय उनको देखते समय भूल जाते थे कि एक वरिष्ठ कलाकार है, वो आके नाच रहा है। उनके मनोभावों में, उनकी अभिव्यक्ति में आपको राधिका का सरस श्रृंगार नजर आता था। तो आप बाहरी आवरण से परे जाकर के उस कला को परख सकें, उसे सराह सकें, ये बहुत ज़रूरी है। नृत्य प्रदर्शन का संबंध केवल मानव शरीर की गतिमयता से नहीं होता, उसके साथ ही संगीत से भी जुड़ा होता है, साहित्य से भी जुड़ा होता है। इसके अलावा दृश्य विधान, प्रकाश संयोजन, वेशभूषा, अभिनय आदि सभी का समावेश होता है। प्रेमी प्रस्तुतियों में काव्य पाठ या वीडियो टेप जैसी सहायक सामग्री का भी उपयोग किया जाता है। तो ये सभी तत्व किस तरह से प्रस्तुति को प्राणवान बना रहे हैं, इसको अभिव्यक्त कर सकने के लिए इन सारी बातों को भी आपको जानना होता है, इसका थोड़ा बहुत ज्ञान आपको अपेक्षित होता है। सदियों से धार्मिक और सामाजिक अनुष्ठानों में नृत्य के प्रयोग को पूरा इतिहास मिलने के बावजूद इसे प्रदर्शनकारी कला का दर्जा भी बहुत हाल की बात है। अभी भी बनते जा रहे हैं, सत्र तो अभी अभी जुड़ा है, इससे पहले ओडिसी आया, उससे पहले कुचिपुड़ी आया है। तो शास्त्रीय नृत्य का दर्जा मिलना ही पर्याप्त नहीं है, उस पूरी परंपरा का आपको बोध होना चाहिए। और वो परंपरा जो कि संगीत नृत्य में तो मिटती जाती है, उन्हीं क्षणों में होती है जिन क्षणों में आप नृत्य देख रहे हैं, उसके बाद उसको पुनर्जीवित करके उसका आकलन, उसका विश्लेषण करना होता है। वस्तुतः कला समीक्षा एक गंभीर विषय है, वह एक गहन उत्तरदायित्व का काम है, गहरी जिम्मेदारी की बात है। समीक्षा नृत्य, संगीत जैसे क्षणभंगुर कलाओं के कई सार संभाल का काम करती है। वो कला जो अभी मिट जाएगी, उसको अगर स्थायी रखना है तो उसको स्थायित्व देती है। एक तरह से वह उनके इतिहास का लिखित दस्तावेज है। वीडियो रिकॉर्डिंग, फिल्म, नृत्य लिपि, स्वरलिपि के अभाव में यह महत्वपूर्ण सामग्री का काम करती है। वह इन कलाओं का दो टूक सच है, इनकी सूक्ष्म अंतर्दृष्टि है, उनके निष्पक्ष जांच का जरिया है। बीते हुए संगीत नृत्य कार्यक्रम का लिखित रिकॉर्ड भी है और गुणात्मक विश्लेषण भी। आने वाली पीढ़ियों के लिए वह साक्षी है उस प्रस्तुति की जो मिट चुकी है। समीक्षा के द्वारा ऐतिहासिक, सामाजिक और सांस्कृतिक संदर्भ भी मिलता है वो कृति विशेष का, और इसके एक नहीं अनेक उदाहरण दिए जा सकते हैं। इसके लिए समीक्षक का और समीक्षा का अनुपेक्षणीय महत्व है। उसे गंभीरता से लिए जाना चाहिए, लिखने की दृष्टि से भी और प्रकाशन की दृष्टि से भी। यहाँ चूँकि संपादक गण भी आए हुए हैं, आई विश कि और अधिक संपादक होते जो कि ये समझ सकते कि कितना अनुपेक्षणीय महत्व है इनका। दरअसल अच्छी समीक्षा कला के प्रति समर्पण, शुभेच्छा से वास्ता रखती है। यदि हम चाहते हैं कि कला फले फूले, अधिकाधिक लोगों तक पहुँचे, उन्हें समृद्ध करे, तो कला समीक्षा सेवा का, संगीत सेवा का, नृत्य सेवा का एक उत्कृष्ट माध्यम है। अच्छी और स्तरीय समीक्षा उस सुखद शीतल बयार का काम करती है जो कला के सुगंध को दिग दिगंत में विस्तीर्ण करती है, उसकी सुरभि को, उसकी खुशबू को दूर दूर तक फैलाती है। मैं अपने वक्तव्य का समापन एक शेर से करना चाहती हूँ। खुशबू को फैलने का बहुत शौक़ है मगर, खुशबू को फैलने का बहुत शौक़ है मगर मुमकिन नहीं हवाओं से रिश्ता किए बगैर। शुक्रिया।
धन्यवाद मंजरी जी। समीक्षा, हिंदी और अंग्रेजी माध्यम में समीक्षा के स्तर, समीक्षा में प्रतिभा द्वय का समावेश, समीक्षा में शब्द प्रयोजन, आस्वादन और विवेचन का प्रवास और समीक्षा का सर्वसमावेशक स्वरूप। I thank Manjari ji for this paper, and we have Shyam Hari ji, our next speaker. He has been writing on dance for the last 17 years. He started with the Bhubaneswar edition of Indian Express in 1997. After 10 years, he joined The Hindu as its correspondent for the Cultural Affairs and Arts Critic in 2006, when its Odisha edition was launched. In between, he has been writing for Nartanam, Attendance, Shruti, and of course www.nartaki.com. He decided to be a full-time dance writer and has been writing since a couple of years. He has refrained from reporting and writing on any other subject other than dance for the newspaper. Apart from writing on dance, he has been awarded the Senior National Fellowship to undertake research on Odissi dance. His topic is Dance Writing in Indian Mainstream Media Today, a Journalist's Perspective. Shyam Hari ji.
Namaskar. I am very happy and very nervous also because this is my 22nd year of reporting, and I used to sit there, and for the very first time I am here, facing the challenge of speaking before the people who are writing on dance before I was born. So it's truly, but I would limit my deliberation to a very macro level. Like Dr. Kothari has spoken about the dance writing scenario. For all of you, I am a case study. I would limit my deliberation to my personal experience, my journey, and as a newcomer into dance criticism. Parimal ji has told all about my work, and it's very small. I mean, I have been a correspondent for cultural affairs now for the 17 years, but I've been very lucky. My editors at Indian Express and at Hindu have never removed me to any other bit. Like they told me, you can continue as long as you like, which never happens in case of most of my colleagues. So straight away I would like to start with the case that I faced and my colleagues elsewhere in the newspaper face, and whom we criticize also. Like, the whole discussion revolves around the dying genre of dance criticism. The standard is deteriorating. I admit that, but at the same time we have to also be aware of which are the factors leading to its deterioration, which I have experienced. As a beginner, when I was sent to dance, to cover dance events, the editor will ask me, come back by 7, file the report by 8 o'clock. The concert usually ends at 10 o'clock. So what we do, we rush to the auditorium, we speak to the organizers and the dancers, and like Manjari said, we take a handout also and used to write. But in between, I took my personal interest. I tried to stay till the end, I skipped my dinner or times. I told our editor that let us be honest. I mean, if I don't view, how can I review it? I can report it, but slowly and slowly, the newspapers can't appoint a reporter and a critic also. I mean, it's they have to pay you. So the editor told me that I can't have 5 people for 5 bits. You have to write on theatre, literature, cinema, dance, music, what not. I mean, but that's the pleasure of writing. What it taught me, that you develop some kind of, what we say, interrelated link, how to analyze dance, my knowledge, my study of literature helped me to analyze dance also. So all these things come over the years, but how I developed. When years of watching, years of interacting with the dancers, choreographers, I go to the class also, I sat there, I saw how dance is being choreographed. Then the most important thing that helped me, which in the first class of journalism, our teachers had told me, to be a good journalist, write good reports. So that's what I did. Every morning I wake up, I open the Friday Review page or maybe the New York Times. I keep reading the reviews. That helps me to develop my own vocabulary, and more than that, your understanding also. So now, the challenges I faced, because I resigned from a newspaper, I thought I should fully focus on my subject, otherwise I will be nowhere. You will be a very dishonest critic or a critic who has no competence. It's better you be a journalist or be a dance critic. But so what I feel that my colleagues still, I go around the country. In the last 2 years, I have covered 18 cities. I have seen a lot of dance festivals. But wherever I go, my first job is to meet the dance writers there, just to know what they are doing and to know about their regional dance scene also. Everybody has the same problem. Either they have to quit their job to be a competent dance critic, or they have to be there as an incompetent writer. It's a very hard choice. It's not a very easy thing. So, so how their reports or the so-called reviews appear to be so dishonest, so incompetent. But we must also, the editors have to consider also, like how to groom your own dance critic. It's my view is that, all the newspapers should groom their own dance critics, or they should rely on the people who are writing, maybe freelancers, maybe established dance critics, instead of sending their junior journalist. Because the editors have an idea that culture is such a subject that anybody can handle. So I know, when we start, they tell us to cover crime, and the immediate next promotion is covering culture. So they go and write anything. 2 years back, I was sitting in my city, Bhubaneswar. There was a journalist, he was sitting next to me. When she left, she said, "Bhaiya, I am so happy I saw Kathak today." It was Kuchipudi, and I called her back, So it pains me a lot because, I am speaking something ill of myself, I mean my community, but this is the reality. I called her, I said, it was Kuchipudi, it was not Kathak. How do you, you should know what are the basic things that are 8 kind of forms. There are small books available for children, you buy this, read it. And when you come to cover this, and if it comes in the newspapers also, they start criticizing all of us that we have no idea on dance when writing on this. So stop doing this. But my humble submission is especially to the young dancers who are here, who want to write on dance. They can come into dance writing. It's not so challenging. It's challenging, but it's not impossible. And the very first thing that a dance, an apprentice like me, a beginner like me should do, that do your homework well. Be very passionate about your art and be very sincere also. Nothing is impossible. Like all these people who spoke here, nobody was taught how to be a dance critic. Everybody is a self-made dance critic. Nobody was taught. And our time, and now I read the book by Kapila Bhaschan. She writes that I did not write on Kuchipudi because I strongly that if you don't know, you have never experienced any dance form, you are not qualified to write on it. People like Bija, me, all these people who are started writing a dance, or my friend K.K. Gopal Krishnan, how can we learn all these dance forms? The newspapers tell us to write, So we have to do our homework. Maybe looking at dance for hours and hours, knowing the technique, reading about it helps us. But now, from this very depressing picture, let me come to the very rosy picture, which I think, what are the prospects for a dance writer? I believe there is still enough scope for a journalist covering dance or for a dance critic for that matter to take up dance writing as a career, which I have done. Even dancers interested in dance writing can also safely get into dance writing. As far as I know, there is a severe dearth of dance writers in our country. When I left Indian Express and moved to Delhi to be a dance writer, I met Ashish Mohan Khokar, the attendance editor of the attendance. And at the first meeting, he told me, "You are used to write 300 words. Get yourself ready to write 3,000 words." With that line, he told me 12 years back, and that was an eye-opener. I knew to be a dance critic or to be a dance writer, you should not confine yourself to just reporting things. And after 10 more years, I understand I am ready for writing 30,000 words. As I just started, compiling something for a biography of Sanjukta Panigrahi, I understood that there is a big scope ahead. I mean, not that you should confine yourself to dance criticism only. So when he told me, thereafter I knew that there is a lot of scope, and I tried to explore also. Then I started writing for .com. Lalita ji is here, she is our editor. Then I started writing for Nartanam, and from a contributor, from a reviewer, they elevated me to the post of one of the editors. One of the editors because if you learn your work, if you are serious at it, today or tomorrow you will definitely get a scope. You will definitely get a scope. Then also NCPA, they bring out this Onstage magazine. They also carried my articles. Magazine from Malaysia, Asia Dance magazine, they also carried. So I like Irsen's Artland magazine also. They always invite articles. More than that, all our Sunday editions of newspapers like Indian Express, Pioneer, Hindu, Asian Age, they have a huge space. You can write for them. All that you have to have your own contacts. You should go and meet them. Nobody will come and tell you ki you write for us. We have to explore constantly. A career in dance writing need not be confined to dance criticism only. One can write on dance personalities, dance institutions, trends in the dance scene today for Sunday newspapers and magazines. One can write books on dance, which our students of dance badly require these days. The biography of Odissi Guru Kelucharan Mahapatra by his Italian disciple Ilyana Sitarasti is still being sold as hotcakes even years after its publication. Always, people demand that book. That's the only book available on the biography of an Odissi personality. Can we believe Sanjukta Panigrahi died 19 years back? Still we don't have a biography. So these foreigners who come to learn Odissi, they don't know Odia. And the very first thing they ask me, what are you doing here? Why don't you write the biography of Sanjukta Panigrahi? We need to know about your Devdasis, about your Puri temple, about Madalapanji. What are you doing here? So then I learned that, as an Odia, as somebody staying in Bhubaneswar for mostly 25 years now, I can write a book, and the books will be sold also. Take for example, this Leela Samson's book on Rukmini Devi Arundhati. All of us are buying it. I saw at airports, railway stations, wherever you go, this book is being sold out. I also experiment. I replicated Ashish Bhai's attendance model to Odissi. I brought out a book, yearbook, Odissi Annual. I invested small amount of money, but I documented the scene of Odissi that happened during 2010. It went sold out. I got back my money. Now I am ready for the second edition. So these things are possible. Things are not so bleak as we think of. All that, you have to have a spirit of adventure and have trust on yourself also, that your work will be paid off. Then, writing apart, what I thought, I transpired my mind that my mother tongue is Odia and I write in English. I can also write in Odia. For Odia newspapers, there is a huge fan following of dance in all languages. Like you can write in English and Marathi, somebody can write in English as well as in Telugu. If you really want to reach out to the mass media, we belong to mass media, and if you want to reach out to the common people, if you want to educate them, to generate interest in them in dance, you must also write in your own language, and it's possible. You can write in Hindi and English. So in India, that's the advantage. We are not forced to write in one language. So for writing for other magazines and newspapers in other languages, you will be paid also, you will be read also. So these are the avenues I think we all can explore. And another area for a dance writer is research and documentation. We all know that how much we are poor in our document. We are not documenting the history of our dance, the growth of our. Any journalist, any dance writer can do this, like Professor Mohan Khokar has done. Nobody asked him to do this, and that's how I started. I collect whatever I get on Odissi, because people keep coming to my city, and all along they ask that there is no reference material here. We come to Odisha, but we have to go to the Central Sangeeta Nataka Academy to get some, to read some review articles. So those are the things we can get into. And another point is, why should we restrict to writing on classical dance only? We have, numerous forms of tribal dances, folk dances, ritualistic dances also. Dance is dance. It should not be into classical dance alone. If I write only on 8 classical dances, newspapers will say. If I write a book on tribal dances of Odisha, the government asked us to write 2-3 books on the tribal dances of Odisha, the classical dances, the ritualistic dances also. Even if the Times of India group have brought out books like this in our language, in English, on our state. So we can explore all these avenues also. One more thing I have observed, each city should have its own qualified dance critic. I come from a small city, and with very little experience, I have been called everywhere. Every month I get invitations to cover dance, and I wonder why. Why do I come to Bangalore? Why do I come to Calcutta? Why do I go to Guwahati? I am not that much a big person to go there, and they tell us nobody comes here. We call people, they don't come, and even then they come, they don't stay back. They don't watch your performances. They leave half through. So they don't get justice. So we have thousands of dancers dancing today, hundreds of dance festivals happening across India. How many people are there? That's why, it's so difficult to get people like Sunil Kothari, Leela Venkataraman, Ashish Mohan Khokar. I have been the media coordinator for Konark Dance Festival for 7 years now. We book them in advance, 1 year ahead we tell them, ma'am, you have to come here. See the difficulty, how many dance organizers can afford to take critics to their cities? At least each city can have its own critic, but the critic has to do this, not the dancers will not do that. Like I could make out my living, I earn whatever I require for myself. Out of writing on dance, I have never been a poor. Although you don't become richer, you don't get money as you get as a staff or reporter, but things are not impossible. That's what I wanted to tell you. So let me come to another thing that editors always used to tell me. We have lament the shrinking space in Indian mainstream media on dance. But let us analyze which are the factors which lead towards this alarming trend. True that newspapers have become products. They have to sell, they need advertisement. And a lot of things have come up also in between. We don't have only classical dance only, but food festivals, flower festival, then a lot of entertainment things are happening. Why should a newspaper invest so much of space on dance writing from which they are gaining nothing? It's not matter of advertising. I will tell you my personal experience. As long as we wrote good things about the dance, everything was fine. One fine morning, I wrote good words about a bad dancer. Then the person called the Indian Express editor and said, if your reporter does not apologize, we will stop advertising because we are doing a festival. The editor said, no, I will stand by my reporter because it's called Express Empire. We are also a very rich group. We are not afraid of you. But then what they said, they sent a legal notice that what qualifies your reporter to criticize this and all these things. Then he called me and said, why are you wasting your life and my space and my peace of mind also? You are writing something, next morning I am getting a call. When we write about politicians, they give us some advertisement. When you write about sports also, we get advertisement. Everything gives us advertisement and appreciation, but your dancers only call when there is something with the reporting. So, but it's a very serious thing. Next day, he decided, the Indian Express editor decided, it has to be named leisure. The page was on Friday, it was a review. Next, it was a leisure. And he said, do one thing, be very careful, don't criticize anybody, play safe always, because we have to sell our newspaper. Why should people should come to our office, they call you and they say, we are dragging you to the court. Stop all these things. How does it help us? My point is, when you see bad things, you complain. Do you appreciate when you see good things? In my 17 years of reporting, I have seen only one email from an American dancer that came to our editor. She wrote that I am very happy, I am in Bhubaneswar for the last 7 years, and a reporter wrote a very nice story about my life. That's the only piece of appreciation my editor got. They always praise me. When I go to the auditorium, they say, oh, you came, we are so happy, you are writing about us. But what about the person who sent me there and who allowed me that space? Without the editor's decision, I can't write. Overnight, it was stopped. So he said, don't criticize anybody. You just write profiles, all these things, interviews, never criticize. So what do you do? Then I Hindu. But why newspapers should not get appreciation? We do good things, you also appreciate. And when we do even bad things, they don't write. How many readers are writing to the newspapers, asking for a space? We all are discussing that there is no space. How many people are? I am sure, when I write about dancers, I tell them that your reviews has come. And sometimes also they ask me, Bhaiya, can we have a copy? I buy it and keep it for them also. Or they come to your office, they said, oh, we forgot to, collect the copy. Could you please give it a copy from your? Should we be behaved like this? I mean, we don't deserve such kind of treatment. Like, you should regularly read it, not that when your review comes, you come and pick up the copy. Oh, this is a very, very alarming trend, but we people are creating it. I mean, together. Dance critics are not responsible. It is the dancers and the readers also. Dancers form a very small chunk, but what about the people who love dance writing? Why don't you write to the editors that if you demand something, it will definitely come up. If there are 4 pages of sports, because there is a big demand from the readers. It's not the arbitrary decision of the editors. These are the things we have to take care of if we really want to come together and develop dance writing or criticism for that matter. And there is a very big need for institutional training of people like me. There was a time, it's okay, I'm lawyer, self-made, but it is high time we need to be trained also. I joined a course in Pune, FTI, Pune Film and Television Institute of India. It was film appreciation course. I joined it in 1995. And it helped him so much. Thereafter, I could cover international film festivals of India. It helped me to write a book on Odia cinema also. And it helps me to analyze cinema without meeting the director or anything, because the medium. For 1 month, we saw the films. So all the people like Adur Gopal Krishnan, Sam Benegal, all these people came and we had the opportunity to interact with them. So all these things equip you how to analyze cinema. Where are these institutes in India? In last 17 years, at least I have met the Secretary of Sangeet and Academy in New Delhi thrice, spoken to all the senior dancers I know, most of the dancers I know who are the members of this governing body or executive council, that why don't you have a dance critics convention? Why don't you have a dance appreciation course? There was nobody, it has fallen into the deep ears of everybody. But until and unless you have an institutional training, how do you expect me to excel in something? For cricket, for everything you have, for swimming also you have system, dance writing. How do you expect it to grow? You know what the complexity, 8 styles at least. I have to know the languages, the cultural context. It's not so easy. So why should people come in? It's very easy to analyze cinema, very difficult to analyze classical dance. So we need something like this, and I know this National Museum in New Delhi, they have an arts appreciation course. They had, I have no idea. I also went there. It is spread over 5 months, and only 1 class every Thursday. Which will allow you 5 months leave? So we should develop some kind of, condensed course in dance criticism, which anybody interested like me, I will pay my money and I will come and join the course. But somebody has to do this. And it's high time maybe universities like Pune, like you people have come forward. Somebody should have to break the ice. I think we have also the need for a dance critic federation in India. Whenever I get to read this newsletters of Dance Critics Association of America, I get tremendous idea, I mean, how to write, and we get to know how they develop. They come together. There is an annual dance writers convention happening in America, and all of them are coming together. Like today you come together, even on dinner table also, I have to learn something. When they talk on dance, I hear all these things, and I hear all this, like a student I am listening to everybody. It is helping me to open my mind, to know what is, I mean, you get interested all these things. But in India, we all grow in isolation. Like it took me 10 years to come to Delhi and meet Leela Venkatraman. See what happens. There must be a chance to interact with her when I was a beginner. It takes 10 years. And at this, point, after 17 years, now I bought this Natya Shastra, I am reading it, or reading Kapila Bhaishan. Is it not a pity? We should start early, not at this age. Or so if you really want to groom dance writers, let them decide early in their career that we will be dance writers. Take up a course in dance or dance criticism, and then you see everything, all the dance styles. Then you start writing. So I think here comes the responsibility of all. Elders who are here. I make a very humble appeal. Please do something for us. Like if you people, try, we can grow. We are just like your children, like your successors. So see what is happening in this country. All these dance critics who are sitting here, they have exposure to dance and music, but not me. I never learned dance. It's not possible here also. So let's groom them through an institution, and like the Central Academy, the state academies, as well as the universities in India who offer dance classes, dance courses, they should come together. Their module, it's not, see, you are spending crores of rupees on dance festivals, and it is happening all through there. Even the government is spending money. The academy is doing so many festivals. We go there, we fly, we stay there in expensive hotels. Don't they have money for a dance critics convention or dance appreciation course? They should do it. And if they don't do this, the future will be bleak. Nobody can save us. How many people will starve to write on dance? And finally, it's my, it's my personal opinion. The challenges faced by a dancer and a dance critic are not very different. I know the dancers. Both of us actually strive for space. We complain we don't have a space in newspapers. They don't have a space in the press also. But why do people dance? I have asked many young dancers. The future is bleak. Why do you dance? They say we can't stop dancing. We can't live without dancing. The same case with people like us who love dance also. It's we are at the other side of the coin. We also care for dance. We love dance. So coming together is very, very important. Interactions, cooperation, like not filing court cases. It won't help you. I tell you, it won't help you. After this generation, in the whole country, go to Delhi, you don't find a young writer on dance criticism. Go to Calcutta, nobody there. Nobody there. Hyderabad also. See Bangalore. Apart from, now Ashish Bhai has come back from Delhi to Bangalore. That's why they have a person. What we do in Odisha, we don't have anybody even if to report on dance. I left 2 years back. For the past 2 years, there is reports also. Nobody wants to be a dance writer because there is no money. But what I gained out of writing on dance, like Manjari was telling, I can say that I feel blessed when you sit with Guru Kelucharan Mahapatra, when I went to cover his funeral ceremony, or you meet Birju Maharaj, or you go and sit at the, this satras in Assam, or even if you talk to the people who are sitting here, you are revisiting history. You are, the history is being unfolded right in front of you. You have seen dance is being constructed. She was talking about the Odissi. I have been born in Odisha, but till I was 29, I had not seen dance because I come from a tribal district. I come from a village also. I never went to big universities, never saw dance. But the moment I joined this newspaper, they told me you have to be a culture reporter, and that's how I first came across dance. So all these years has given me enough of self-satisfaction. I strongly believe, like the dancers, we get a lot of joy and pride out of writing on dance. It gains you nothing. I know in monetary terms, it won't make you happy. But if you really look at it as service to dance, yes, we are privileged, we are blessed also. Thank you.
Thank you, Shyam Hariji. The hard facts and ignorance of certain sections of media towards classical dance, the relevance of art and criticism, two sides of the same coin, just like the artist and the critic, and the relevance of research and documentation, which a critic is parallelly doing in multiple ways to contextualize and theorize his work. Our next speaker is Vijay Sai. Vijay Sai is a well-known award-winning writer, editor, and a culture critic. He has written and published extensively on Indian classical music, dance, theatre, Sufism, food, travel, fashion, film, and visual arts. He served as the editor-in-chief of several papers and He has served as the editor-in-chief for several papers and magazines. His articles have appeared in some of the most prestigious publications in and outside India. He has also presented several academic research papers and translated literary works that have won critical acclaim in addition to scripting television and cinema. Utsav, a celebration of Indian music, researched and scripted by him in '96 for the Star TV, anchored by Ustad Zakir Hussain, won several national awards. He has travelled extensively within India and abroad and has interest in publishing the literary and cultural history of modern India. He is currently working on several projects on history and performing arts. India Today magazine rated him as one of the young achievers, and Condé Nast International listed him in the Generation Next Culture Critics amongst 10 people across the world. He lives and works in India. We welcome Vijay for his paper.
Thank you, Parimal, and the Department of Performing Arts, Pune. Wonderful seminar, and more power to you, first of all. And if you've just heard all the speakers before me, it's enough to squash your intellectual spirits. But nevertheless, thank you again for taking the risk of inviting me here. And so I would like to start with, my topic says, the critic as a catalyst. So what is this creature, this ambiguous creature, the critic, down? For the longest time, if one goes back into the history of performing arts, even in Sanskrit theatre, like maybe Bhasa from the 2nd century or later, the idea of a Vimarshak or a Vimarshaka, which blandly got translated in English, a bland language like English, called the critic. It's a very ambiguous in nature, and it is a creation of the British colonial influences that happened. This whole re-emergence, which was not there for almost 1,000 years or so, just like theatrical practices, Sanskrit theatre for matter. I go back to Sanskrit theatre extensively because I root the whole idea of Natya Shastra and the other seminal texts that came out after that to that sort of a source, which was the most initial performance practice that we have in documented history. Even now, so this whole idea of a performance and the improvisatory, as Leelaji said, the whole idea of improvisatory element to it, which was it was never acceptable to be put it, in a written format. It was always interpretations and more interpretations, unless someone like the 18th century, scholars like Kodachala Mallinatha Suri, who he wrote extensive commentaries on texts, on instances of his time. And we have those to refer back to. Now what happens is, the English influence that comes in, and then what happens to the critic? We don't know who this creature is, but there is an idea of criticism that emerges, that you could opinionate about a certain process. And this vaguely lay around the whole performance practice genre. I'd like to recollect a small story over here, the famous courtesan of Lucknow, Umrao Janada, who says, she's narrating a story and she says, there was this young, handsome, heartbroken lover who wants to commit suicide because he's heartbroken and he cannot take his life anymore. He's in love with a courtesan who's rejected him, so he decides to commit suicide. And so he jumps into the river. Now he didn't die because he's hanging on to a certain rope that is with him and he's just floating along the river. When Wajid Ali Shah is boating at that time, he comes across this strange creature floating and he realizes, what is it? He fishes him out and he asks, what's your story? And the man says, I'm heartbroken and my love has been rejected. I've been jumped. So, I tried to commit suicide and that's been an unsuccessful attempt. And Wajid Ali Shah is very moved by this story and he appoints him as a minister in his court. And he's an educated young man, so he makes for a great minister in his court. Now, having told this story, Umrao Jan makes a very interesting remark. What she says, such wonderful things used to happen in the days of yore. Now that the British are over here, now that the British are here, what she exactly says, the quote according to Ruswas, it says, such wonderful things used to happen of yore. Now that the British are here, nothing matters now except merit. So this whole idea of artistic integrity being pitted against merit, a Victorian model of merit, an idea of what merit is, and this notion of a critic that comes very strongly from the Eurocentric traditions across. You have in Greek, way back it goes to a term of kritikos, which means a person who offers reasoned judgment or analysis, value judgment, interpretation or observation. With all this in view, it's important to know that it's still a very subjective task. And all these critics sitting here will tell you how tediously subjective it can be. Now this whole, I'm dealing with this creature called the critic all through my talk over here. And I would say, after studying it and after having practiced it, after having researched it and seeing seniors, readers, so on, you see, criticism is a kind of an argument. And what better a space to maneuver yourself into like arts, which give you the canvas for you to sit argumentatively and think. It's a voluntarily taking on station of a sort, that you're agreeing to a certain process or you're not. The idea of criticism is bigger than criticism itself. That you say that when I'm looking at a parallelly, I'm looking at a program, I look at a yakshagana or I look at a kathak and I say, this is the percussion, you understand it at a physical medium, a philosophical medium, a metaphorical medium. And as a critic, you're supposed to put all these down and tell your rasikas what it is. And rasa, the whole idea of rasa, I don't want to get this into a very turgid didactic talk on rasa. Rasa is the exclusive privilege of the audience. And what the critic does is get between this intermediary space between the process of art and the understanding of art. And this, that's why it says, criticism, some say it's a very entertainment form. And they say that what is an art form? That any entertainment form that's lost its audience becomes an art form, is one way of they've said it. So we have things like, we have dance. Hopefully it doesn't turn into an art form if it loses its audience. Or you have film, it loses its audience, it becomes an art form. Someday we hope television loses its audience and becomes an art form with the current way that it's going. The whole role of a critic, I would say the critic works in absence. Like the dog that did not bark in Sherlock Holmes. It may be an important clue it's an important clue, and the true nature of criticism is that never in history has it been easier than in today to register one's approval or disapproval of facts so strongly, of opinions so pronounced, you know. This is an age where you have, the emblem is, you know, to show a thumbs up or a thumbs down. You know, the kind of 5-star ratings films get in papers and so on. Now, how within this sphere of working, where does the critic stand? How do you play around with the intellectual process of it? I am reminded over here of what French philosopher Foucault says of the medical gaze. And he uses the gaze as a tool to understand a whole lot of process. Gazing is, I mean, to look at, this thing. And he says, he uses it in medical terms because that is when Europe started remodeling hospital spaces and jails, to discipline and to punish. And very surprisingly, Foucault takes his influences for his ideas from the East and looks back into many of the arts over here and says, what does the medical gaze do? It denotes a dehumanizing medical separation, of the patient's body from the patient's person, the identity. Very simple, to gloss it says, when a doctor comes into a ward, you see a whole lot of beds lying there. The doctor exactly knows from his position what each patient is and what it deserves, what level of medication and what intensity of involvement medical intervention has to each patient separately. Now, this is how I would look at the idea of what a critic does, is to say that, he looked at it as a meta-narrative of things, and he looked at it, to say how modernity has brought about this. Same thing with a jail. The head, the in charge of the prison, he can see the entire prison, the European prisons, when I'm talking about prison, that's what came here eventually, is you have all the prisoners, all the victims, criminals lying around. They cannot see him, but he can see each cell individually. He knows each criminal, their crime, their history, their record, and how careful he needs to be with each one of them. Now, the critic stands in a position vis-a-vis the art forms, vis-a-vis the performance practices that are happening at that crucial point where you know what you're looking at. So when you're looking at a performance, it's not just one dance or one item and so on, but you're trying to, with gaze of your critical appreciation, you're trying to see how far in memory can you relate to it, how far in history can you relate to it. The process itself, most unfortunately, it is understood many times, dancers, not only dancers, musicians, anyone, is that they think we are talking about the dancer or the musician. You're really not. You're talking about the dance form. You're talking about the art form and not the artist. But it's been deducted, unfortunately, now to a situation, they believe that what a critic does is to criticize. I've often been asked, oh, you're a critic, so criticize something about this. It's a very lame thing to say. You're not sitting there because you have to just criticize something about it. You're there to understand it yourself in the first process, and you're trying to take it on from there as your perspective. A critic is nothing but a involved, you see, someone who is probably more in, for a shortage of words, more in intercourse with the process of art. Which is, I take this borrowed from the Sufi traditions, where Sufis, they're all thriving, they're all traveling, and they're aspiring for what? They're aspiring for death, which is rather strange. Why? Because for them they believe death is union with the, and hence you find a dargah that's decorated like a nuptial bed, literally, because they believe death is sex with God. And that, what else can you achieve beyond that? That's sort of divine union. So this intercourse that the critic has with the process of art, it's a love making, it's a transaction, whatever you want to call it. It becomes very interesting when each time you watch a performance. And a performance speaks beyond the stage. Because you come there as a person informed with various faculties. As I said, the gaze, that's very important, is that through the gaze you are assuming that, forget the dancer, but you're assuming, okay, you're presenting this the 1000th time you're saying the Ardhanarishwara Stotra. We know what it is, we know what the philosophy, Shiva, Shakti, blah, blah, blah. Fine. And then where do you situate it? In this process of art growth, where do you situate the whole thing? How, as a critic, yes, you use writing as a tool. That's a very recent invention, maybe 100 years or so, or little more than that. When paper was invented, whatever. We don't have any proof of what critics did, or who were specific critics for the matter of thousands of years. We go back to Natya Shastra, Abhinay Darpana, whatever else. But there is no process of it. We cannot point out to one person and say, Iska, this is what it is. No. Though we've had it long, because we depended on an oral tradition. As Manjariji was saying, the Vidvat Sabhas that happened, where you are asked to give an opinion, and you give an informed opinion. Because you not only see the art form, you go beyond that, and you see more than the art form itself. And you see the process, you see the aura of it, and you see the various metaphorical, psychological conditions that art form has grown in, and that art form has been nurtured in before it's presented to an audience. And so much happens when we go just for one evening of a performance. We don't realize that so much happens. I place the critic as somebody who's aware that all this happens. And that is where, it's not an exalted position by any means. It's a position that comes with a lot of, you have this, so many layers of thinking you're carrying with you when you go. But still you're ready and you're open for a new process. You're ready to absorb. Criticism is the beginning of history, because that is where, the opinion that you formed to now make an imprint. And it's not carved in stone, but yes, it's a vague meaning and a floating that's around. That will inevitably, over a period of decades of transaction of that art form, take a due course. Like Leelaji was mentioning about conventions. That we look at one style and we say, this is what Rukmini decided it should be. This is what Devadasis felt they should perform. There's no right or wrong about it. The thing is, aesthetically, what appeals. And that, as I said, aesthetic to the rasa is a privilege of the audience, because you are absorbing, you are the dashboard of all this. Critic's job, I would say, is to be a very professional aesthete, and with a serious criteria in that. And the best sense of it, you share your perceptions and your values with the reader. And at the end of the day, you're still trying to stretch yourself. You're still trying to, irrespective of history and memory, what criticism does is to kind of keep a tally of both the head and the heart. And a critic plays the role of a catalyst here. That's why I call it a catalyst, is somebody who propels these ideas. Somebody who's taken on the role to throw these ideas further into society, which does not probably have access to art form or to a particular event, or eventually, you also as somebody who's trying to trigger off a reaction. Not in the negative way. Of course, there have been a lot of criticism that's come out in the past. Khushwant Singh used to say, oh, you want to be a critic? I have 3 rules for you. Inform, amuse, irritate. Which was Khushwant Singh, the way he wrote all his stuff. If you read anything, he did all that very religiously. But then that, I don't think, is the true way to understand criticism within arts. Having said that, arts are not in the ivory tower, and it's not that they're inaccessible for everyone. It's absolutely open to all, as much as it's open to the critic. Just that the critic takes the extra effort to go further up and drive into that over-the-edge zone and make that process, own up to that process, and then take it. And that's where he is the unseen catalyst, And what they do is they show you the difference between good art and better art. And that's how I'd like to see. And that's understanding this creature called the critic. I'm still trying to understand it. I'm sure all of you are equally grappling with this. And we'll leave you to grapple in that. It's nice to be in a discomfort, that zone of, why should you be in a soft, cozy zone? You're never going to get it. You live in the middle way when you understand that, yes, this is where I need to be to dodge these things, to balance out both. And then you understand this is what the critic does. constantly. And so what you need to do is, when you see a critic, not look at him as, oh God, that creature hovering around again. To say, yeah, I wish I could be that creature who easily maneuvers into so many zones of art, so many zones of thinking, so many zones of practice in the head and otherwise, to see how you maneuver yourself into that zone. Thank you very much. Thank you once again.